Okay. What's up, Red Faction? Today, we are live right now on twitch.tv/Quiet Coyote. So, should definitely stop on by. When the video goes up, we probably won't be live, but you should still come out. You can see the VOD. You can see what we're doing. We're currently running a stasis build. As you know, I'm not a big fan of stasis. We're also using hand cannon. Not a big fan of hand cannons, but Todd, you know what? I'll give it a shot because the one I got that you were able to get yesterday before like they changed it, there was a Valpacula. Perfect. But today we got to read the Dev Insights, the Final Shape Weapon Tuning Preview. So, with that being said, and right after we reread this, we're going to begin our day off adventure. So, hey Guardians, it's the Weapon Team here with the Weapon Balance Update for the Final Shape. There's a lot to go through. From the comprehensive PVE weapon damage patch to exotic changes, varying from substantial reworks to minor tweaks. We're also tamped down some outliers with an eye toward the world's first race for the upcoming raid. And there's a hint in there about returning fan favorite weapon too. Weapon archetypes. Back in update 6.30, we rolled out spec mods, Dragonfly Surrounded Rampage, into the base functionality of those perks. And now, coming with the rest of the specs, we have increased the base weapon damage almost universally, making exceptions for weapons that were already overperforming, or that we buffed very recently, or have retired the following weapon mods: Boss Spec, Taken Spec, Minor Spec, Major Spec, and the Adept Big One specs. We already happy with the damage output of exotic primary weapons and trace rifles, so we're only significantly reduced their base damage versus red bars. In most cases, this means their damage output is roughly unchanged since they receive the buffs below. Reduced damage bonus versus minors from 40 to 30, except Fighting Lion. Included below are the matching damage changes by weapon archetypes. Note that we made some exceptions for exotic weapons that were already performing strongly and have applied some buffs for just specific tiers of enemies. Except where noted, these changes are PvE only. Also note, because the exotic can't equip mods, this gives them a relative larger buff than legendaries. Example, Risk Runner's maximum damage possible damage is increased by 10 versus red bars, but Shira's is increased by 3. In effect is because it's no longer slot a minor spec. In addition, for compensating through removable spec mods, we've been taking this opportunity to buff some of these weapon types that have languished in the endgame PvE, most notably pulse rifles. Increased PvE damage versus all combatants, pulse rifles by 20, with exceptions of Graviton Lance and Revision Zero's Heavy Burst mode. These have an intrinsic PvE damage buff built in. Pellet shotguns, exceptions, Legend of Accuracy, Tractor Cannon, Conditional, and Fourth Horseman. They are already performing as intended. Who is using Fourth Horseman in PvE? Slug shotguns by 9%. Fusion rifles, with the exception of 1,000 voices, this one just got buffed, by 7%. Snipers, except Ignite's Honed Edge and Cloud Strike Storm. They're both performing well. Borealis? No, I'm kidding. Glaive projectiles, linear fusions. Increased damage versus minors, red bars. This stacks with the base PvE damage increase. Sidearms, trace rifles, scout rifles, and bows have a 20%. Autos and pulse rifles have a 15%. So, against all combatants, this is there. Versus these, they get a 20%. Sidearms, traces, scouts, and bows. All rifles and pulses. For pulse rifles, this is in addition to the above buff, and Graviton, Lance, and Revision Zero's High Burst are included. Pulse rifles will do 1.5 times, so about 38% more damage to red bars. Some machine guns, 10%, 5% for hand cannons. Increased damage versus majors, these orange bars. Trace rifles are the only one getting a 20% buff versus majors. Okay. Increased damage globally, including PvP. So swords and machine guns are getting... Oh, God. Great. Now, swords are going to be even more annoying in PvP, especially with machine guns. You know, just when I started using grenade launchers and rocket launchers, they're like, hey, you want to, like, use something else? We know you are a big fan of our LMGs, so Why don't we bring that back? Now I gotta go grab a frickin' LMG. There's not a stasis LMG. That's exotic. And I don't feel like changing up how the build is set up. Did my dim didn't update? There it is. Where's an exotic LMG that I like? Not Thunderlord. Not Xenophage. Do we really? Not Grand Overture. Is there? Hold on. LMG. Where's an LMG I would like to use? Not Heir Apparent. Is Deterministic Chaos is the only one that I see there. Huh. Interesting. What's up, Misty? Yeah, I will do that. Just grab that. Grab that. Okay. So LMGs are getting a PvP damage buff. Swords are getting a 7. Splash damage from added clear exotic primaries was overperforming in the final shape when combined with the damage buffs listed below. So we pulled it down a bit slightly on a handful. Reduced the splash damage for Sunshot, Trinity Ghoul, Polaris Lance, and Graviton Lance. Interesting. Okay. See what else. Silver releases back. We gave kinetic weapons a substantial boost in PvE to account for being hard for them in the subclass builds. In general, we were okay with leaving this in place until we have a better defined role for kinetics. But this bonus damage versus boss combatant tiers was making it hard for the weapons of other damage types to compete. Kinetic damage type weapons no longer deal bonus damages to bosses. Damage to other combatants tiers is unchanged. For example, a kinetic sniper rifle and a stasis sniper rifle of the same subfamily will now deal to both. Okay. Interesting. We've also made some quality of life changes to several weapon types. Updated the heavy, adaptive, and aggressive burst weapon intrinsic names to match the count across all functionality. 2 burst is a heavy burst, so that includes the sidearms, hand cannons, and pulse rifles. Adaptive burst will be the 3s, so sidearms, linears, and adaptive pulses. And the 4 burst, this will just be pulse rifles. Okay. Remove the foundry name on the vest rapid fire, Hawk 8 precision, and Amalon adaptive intrinsics. Huh. Oh, okay. Scout rifles updated the hipfire reticle to better show accuracy and aim assist state. Huh. Some aggressive handguns struggle to compete with the stats of the top tier example, Igneous Hammer. So with Camille's Dagger and something new returning in the final shape. Oh. Camille's Daggers come back to Iron Banner. So that is I want to say that's a Void hand cannon. Camille's Dagger. Oh no, it's a kinetic. Huh. They're bringing that back. Okay. And something new is the Solstice Stasis hand cannon. So Camille's Dagger is going to have a 31 stability, 31 handling, magazine of 9, and airborne effectiveness of 10. Something new is going to have a 30 stability, 30 handling, and a magazine of 9. Low inventory sniper rifles were a little too low in PvE for our liking, so we increased the minimum. Minimum reserves increased to 17. Linear fusions. Adaptive burst linears are strong, but in some cases quite hard to control. Reduce the fire and ammunition kick and recoil from linear. So the linear, what's that one called? The fire and forget. That one, the stasis one. That's an adaptive one, ain't it? Let's see. Linear fusions. It's an aggressive. Yeah, fire. Isn't Storm Chaser 2? Isn't this one a 3-shot? Yeah. So it's a 3-shotter. So these will have a. You'll be able to control them more. Okay. Wave frame grenade launchers deal competitive damage as of the Destiny 2 into light damage, but some of the stats on these didn't have a gameplay effect. In this pass, we're adjusting the blast radius. The size of the wave is now affected by the blast radius. This will mostly impact the width of the wave, though the length and height will also be scaled. The default display stat for the blast radius is unchanged from 100 to 50, where 50 represents the previous baseline. Any stat over 50 will have a larger wave. Oh, so... Okay. Special ammo wave. Frame grenade launchers overperform as ag-clear weapons in the current state, so we pull the length of the wave back a little bit. Reduce the wavelength to 22 to 15, except for Dead Messenger. So the wave will be... Now the wave will be bigger, but the length will be shorter. Okay. So the more blast radius you have on a waveframe grenade launcher, the larger the wave will be, and so will the max length. Okay. Swords. Update the sword reticle to better indicate its charge state. When the sword energy is consumed, the amount of delay the sword has before it begins to recharge. Okay. Bug fixes. Fixed an issue where the overperforming battle song debuff from some missions will prevent swords from recharging or losing energy while guarding. Fixed an issue where unpowered caster sword heavy attacks would not reset the sword's energy recharge delay. Fixed an issue where the uncharged adaptive storm heavy attack costs the same ammo as their charged counterparts. They cost 1 ammo, same as the other uncharged heavy attacks. Now let's look at exotics. Divinity's ability to bypass combatant gameplay by generating a weak spot, called a cage internally, on command was too high of an uptime as it stands, particularly with trigger feathering, tapping the trigger. We're not changing how effective the cage is or how feathering works, but we're increasing how long it takes to generate the cage, which will make it less ammo efficient and less useful against targets and break aim frequently. Increase the number of shots required to generate it by 75% against combatants. PvP is unchanged. Why are you using Divinity in PvP? That's what I want to know. Raccoon's firing animation makes the weapon too hard to control at a high rate of fire, so we updated it. Swap the firing animation to the same one used by other auto fires. Oh. Yes. Good. Raccoon. Oh god, it's about to get loud. Devil's Rune could be made to apply its firing animation to other equipped sidearms. Fixed an issue where firing animation from Devil's Rune would get applied to other equipped sidearms if the weapon was swapped during the firing animation. Symmetry needed a little attention, particularly its reload speed and handling, so we took the opportunity to increase those via the Catalyst. Catalyst now provides 10 reload, 10 handling, and the edgy current perk, in addition to its existing effects. Gallahorn's Wolfpack rounds always look like arc projectiles regardless of the weapon's actual damage type. Update the visuals of the Wolfpack rounds to match the damage types. For example, on Gallahorn, they will use solar effects. On the Royal Entry Void rocket launcher, buffed by Gallahorn, they will have void effects. Oh. So that means... Gallahorn will now be used to help with scorching. And anything else will have... Okay. Touch of Malice burn from the Darkness Ball didn't last long enough to be useful in PvE. Increase the duration of the burn applied by the Darkness Ball against combatants to 3.5 seconds. Ostria Striga made it too easy to spread poison across a whole encounter from a couple kills of weak combatants. Now has a 4-second cooldown on the Poison Burst. Poison Burst from sustained damage doesn't receive this cooldown. So, okay. Necrochasm's add clear roll wasn't as strong as we'd like, so we buffed it and replaced the Outlaw perk on the cast with the new custom perk to lean to this roll. The intrinsic perk now provides increased reload speed after precision kills. Increased duration of burn applied by the crystal explosions commands by 3.5 seconds. The catalyst has been rebuilt. 1 for Thrall. Damaging 3 combatants in quick succession provides a period of increased damage, rain, and aim assist. Huh, okay. While Lament's damage is roughly equivalent to other swords, healing on a hit largely removes the intended downsides of using the sword for boss DPS, and the chained heavy attack was too strong. Reduce the healing effect by 20%. While this weapon does inherit the 7% global buff to swords, reduce the damage of the high end of the chained attack by 20% at that point. This means combos at lower stacks will be less effective by the charge than combos at higher stacks. Dead Man's Tale's rapid fire hip fire fantasy isn't landing as well as we like, so we bumped up the rate of fire and added a bit of stability to the kernel spike to make it easier to control. At the same time, the strength is skewed a little too high on mouse and keyboard and a little low on controller, so we tuned the accuracy and magnetism controller reticle friction to address this. Great. Dead Man's Tales users are rejoicing right now. I'm not reading the rest of it. Get out of here. A colony fantasy of spawning self-replicating insectoids is something that we wanted to use for a while now. This update allows the colony to deal with waves of combatants in a unique way. Now spawns additional insectoid bots on final blows. More robots up to 5 spawn from tougher combatants. Oh. Dude. The truth has fallen behind other exotic launch launchers, largely due to its lackluster damage, so we wanted to lean further into the total rocket control. Increase the area of effect damage such that it doesn't lose noticeable damage due to not dealing impact damage. Increase the reserves by 3. This is on top of the reserve change to high impacts. Creambreaker's damage output is outpaced by other legendary fusion rifles, so we increase its damage and reserve ammo to compensate. We do see frequent requests to move Queenbreaker into the energy slot, but given the number of special ammo damage options in this slot, we've opted to push it further in the heavy slot. We're working on some functionality changes to this weapon for a future update as well. So, more damage to its bosses, increased reserves. The power of Cerberus plus 1's focus fire perk from the exotic catalyst was limited by it being always available. So we changed this to being available following a kill, allowing us to increase its strength. Focus fire will now activate on special reloads following a kill and will no longer reduce the range or rate of fire. In a world where Bastion has competition for a fusion rifle in the Connect slot, we felt that it was time to lead it into emulating St. 14's combat style. We reworked St. Fisk's combat perks. Dealing damage with a melee increases your charge rate, damage, and reload speed for a short duration. Landing a majority of the pellets in a burst increases melee damage. Great. Ariana's Vow has fallen behind other special barrier weapons and as a solo weapon, so this is opportunity for a subclass tie-in. Breaking a match shield or piercing a champion barrier will cause the target to ignite. Deterministic Chaos does not have a clear niche when it's shipped, so we redesigned it to be an anti-champion weakening powerhouse. This one is now anti-barrier. The heavy weapon, the heavy metal, and Vex Demosil perks have had their locations and behavior swapped. Heavy metal now causes every 4th bullet to make a target volatile, and the 16th will weaken them. Okay. The flexibility offered by the fundamentals on Borealis, Hardlight, and Dead Messenger is useful, but most of the time there's no need to switch types rapidly, so it's irritating to having a current damage type unclear death. The fundamentals now maintain its state across death or respawn. So you're telling me if let's say I want to use the hard light and I want to have it be, let's say I want to have it be solar. And then you die, it's like go back again, respawn, whatever. Now it would just stay as a solar. I think that makes it better. But it's hard to know because Borealis, Hardlight, and Dead Messenger don't... Like, Dead Messenger, I see why people use it. But Hardlight and Borealis haven't really been used a lot. Acrosity is working solo activities as intended. So it will no longer work in Rumble. Okay? It's fine. Archer's Gambit has been brought down a bit to be used on legendaries. Reduce the draw time buff to 60, and reduce the buff duration to 4. Grave Robber Needs Some Love will now activate on dealing damage with a power melee in addition to standard melees. Chain Reaction is too strong of a special weapon in current form, so we branched it between heavy and special weapons. And it will be shipping on new special weapons in final shape. Specials will have a 15% smaller AoE and do 20% less damage. On heavies, they'll do the same as before and do 30% more damage. Edgy Current was a little too slow to activate and didn't provide a strong enough bonus, particularly when amplified. Now it takes 1.5 seconds of sprinting to activate instead of 3 seconds. Also provides a bonus to handling and a 5% scalar on each stat at base. Being amplified will immediately activate the perk to its max effectiveness. Underdog was shelved a long time ago, but we wanted to swap it out with a more viable perk on weapons that still had it. Instances of Underdog will now be replaced with Pulse Monitor. Osmosis and Permeability have been an interesting build crafting potential, but when all they do is change the damage type, they don't have enough general utility. It's also irritating when the perk effect falls off when you don't actually put your weapon away. Will no longer drop off when pulling out a ghost or similar actions. Now it will partially refill the weapon's magazine on activation. So basically, if you have these, you don't have to worry about losing it, and you'll be able to... Okay. The previous chill clip change hurt slow rate of fire weapons disproportionately to the left rapid fire fusion rifles as the clear best option. So we branched the functionality to account for this. Adjust the number of slow stacks applied based on the properties of the weapon. In this case, a rapid fire fusion like Riptide will still require 3 shots to freeze, but slower firing fusion rifles require 2. All other archetypes have been unnerved and will only require 2 shots to freeze. Okay. High Ground's functionality wasn't delivering on the concept strong enough, so we granted a baseline functionality while retaining the fantasy. We worked by providing a stacking damage bonus when getting kills in any context like Rampage, or instantly granting the maximum amount of stacks when damaging an enemy from the high ground. So it's like Rampage, and then when you're on high ground, it's like even better. So PvE, the max bonus is increased to 25% damage, and PvP to 15%. The Killing Tally perk on the original 21 Delirium has been updated to match the version found on randomly rolled weapons. The perk that currently match your equipped subclass have been changed as follows. Osmancy and Tessellation now match the damage type of your equipped grenade. Permeability and Elemental Capacitor now match the damage type of your equipped super. Okay. So if you're running, because like this is probably how they're going to try to make it work with prismatic. Let's say you have the strand super, but you have like a void grenade. So now you throw that grenade out, and let's say you have osmosis and elemental capacitor. You throw out your grenade. It's void, but then you'll also have, a super. Your super will be the, needle storm, let's say. You'll get the bonus for airborne effectiveness. And you can have your originally, kinetic sidearm, let's say, have, a void grenade. Okay, interesting. Deconstruct had variety issues that crop when it started to appear on AoE weapons. We've been updating to address bugs and prevent exploiting ammo generation. Now refills from reserves instead of from the thin air and should trigger more reliable across weapon damage types in the future. Now that we're largely happy with the weapon damage in PvP, we're going to be we're going to move the PvP specific tuning out of the game modes and into the base weapon tuning in the future. This will generally just give us the ability to fine-tune damage per weapon subfamily. Example, precision hand cannons instead of all hand cannons. We also have some big system changes that we're working on for a future release, including the redesigns of the PvP and PvE ammo economies, introducing more player choice into weapon mods and more new weapon types. That's all for today. We hope that these changes will help you better understand how your arsenal will fare once final shape arrives on June 4th, and that you're better prepare your loadouts for the new raid. Be on the lookout for another Sandbox Focus article coming on May 22nd, next week, about abilities and exotic armor. So it was yesterday that we got a look at the new exotic armor pieces coming. Titans, your Iron Man War Machine fantasies will now be something that you can actually legitimately have. You can now just put your barricade out or use your thrusters and fire rockets at people. Y'all got the best one. Hunters, I mean, if you like the new one, you can have it. Warlocks, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about how they don't like it. And for me, I think I like it because I want to be able to not always have, consuming my shackle grenade to do the same thing. I wanted to be able to just put a couple arcane needles out, throw some threadlings out, do stuff like that. So for me, I'm gonna like it. I'm gonna have to try it, see how it works, everything. But yeah, I wonder what the exotic armor changes are going to be. They're probably going to look more at like necrotic because they touched on Ostria Striga and the other necrochasm. Interested to see how abilities are going to fare with prismatic because now we're going to have some abilities that can be used multiple times and how that's going to compare to their non-prismatic versions. So that'll be interesting to see. But with that being said, Red Faction, I'm going to end the video off here. Hope you guys have a good one. I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.